Hey everyone, this is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. In this episode, I'll be reviewing the first part of Masters of the Air, which just dropped off of. It's on Apple TV, so you all want to sign up for Apple TV. Of all the streaming services, right now Netflix is still the best because they're willing to have content that is anything content, meaning they'll have woke stuff, they'll have not woke stuff, and whatever. So basically, they're letting you judge, right? Amazon's loaded with has a habit of putting a lot of woke crap on there. You know, they have some good stuff like Reacher and Eternalist and all that. Um, Apple TV seems to be kind of threading the ground there and trying to produce high quality stuff that appeal to audiences. They do have some woke stuff in there, but like this isn't woke, for example. So what is Masters of the Air? Right. So I have a whole bunch of links in the description which give you uh, links to the show, so to speak, on several different sources, as well as to the author Donald Donald L. Miller, who wrote the book Masters of the Air, America's Bower Boys Who Fought the Air War against Nazi Germany. Uh, Now, this show is a sort of spiritual side piece to Band of Brothers and the Pacific. In fact, another book written by this author was used for as part of one of the several books for the Pacific. Okay, so yes, of course, you could read the books, right? But Band of Brothers, basically, Band of Brothers, from a storytelling point of view, grew out of Steven Spielberg's work on Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks and a couple other guys have been overseeing. They oversaw Band of Brothers. They oversaw the Pacific, and now they oversaw this. This has been delayed by several years. I want to say they first wanted to put it together in like 2013 or so, a long time ago, and it just meandered around with for various reasons. That eventually the COVID thing delayed it, and there was some strikes in between. Point is, it's out finally now, right? And that leads to my first legitimate, I want to say complaint, but it's not really a complaint because it doesn't. The quality, at least so far through one episode, the quality is what you would expect, right? Uh, so if you all remember Band of Brothers, you don't have to watch that to understand this. It's about It's about Easy Company, which is a set of army guys in the European campaign. Uh, you don't have to understand it, but one thing about Band of Brothers was they had the survivors of Easy Company as the old men telling they didn't tell you who they were at first, beginning to recount some of the stories of each episode as they went on. And then when they did the Pacific a few years later, that was more difficult because obviously a lot of the people had died by then who were based on the book that it was on. Well, fast forward to 2024, which we've well past the 75th anniversary of World War II, which I think was 3 years ago or something like that. And any survivors of World War II, of which I don't even think there are a million left, but I will Google and let's find out together. How many survivors of World War II are still alive? Of the 16 Americans who served in the global conflict, only about 119,000 are alive as of 2024. My grandpa, my Uncle Benny, my Uncle Frank, my Uncle Mikey, several others who had Uncle Pat, was my grandpa's oldest brother, several others who I don't remember offhand, all fought in that and they're all dead. It says an average 131 are dying each day. So that basically means if another 3 or 4 years, there won't be any living Americans and they're all in their 85 plus, So I'm just out of curiosity. Wow, and I just checked World War One. There were no living veterans of World War One left, which makes sense. It's over 100 years, over 100 years ago. But it's just to see people who were alive pass into history. World War One. I mean, I'm 50 and I'll be passing into history sometime in the next 30 years, probably sooner given my health issues. But it just, you're a living person and then your history and then you're forgotten in a sense. So some people achieve enough. Someday hopefully we'll still be here 1,000 years and someone look back on World War One and Two and say, there were 16 million Americans and however many Russians, and at least in a sense, my grandpa, my uncles, they'll be in a database somewhere. So I'm happy that'll be, and maybe someone will cross-reference that with this video I'm talking about my grandfather, Matthew T. Marino. And he's a great man. Uncle Benny Bernard Grelli was a great man. Frank Colicchio, a great man, and Michael D'Elia, a great man. They all fought, and then they went home and had families. And my grandpa had severe injuries. He was a disabled veteran, but he survived. He married his high school sweetheart, and eventually had 3 kids. And they all had 6 grandkids, and the family's not as successful as others. I mean, I know some people have had 6 or 7 kids and hundreds of grandkids and all that, but we're hanging on, and that's the legacy. That's another legacy of these World War II veterans. Their kids and their grandkids who lived on, in part for their sacrifice. Anyway, so Masters of Air is about the Army Air Corps. I don't know if the whole thing is centered in the European campaign or not. We'll have to see. I've never read the book. I heard about this coming for years and never thought it would actually make it. So, circling back, because it's already 6 minutes, so let's get to the episode, right? So, we're circling back to my one sort of complaint, which really isn't a complaint, is I really dug with Band of Brothers how they opened with the veterans talking about it, right? And obviously, probably none of these guys are left alive, so you really can't do that. So, okay, let's look through. So, it opens up kind of slow. It opens up. They give you a bit of an action scene, and then they cut to the airmen in a bar, right? So we'll kind of. I only watched it once. I'm trying to give you a live my live thoughts here. So yeah, this is the airmen, making some time with women who maybe I'm not look. If you go into battle and you're gonna die, and people want companionship, and I'm not saying these easy women, certainly not, but they want companionship from heroes, and it's a weird sort of interesting study, So these are the airmen talking, having fun, talk about getting ready to fly over, and then they cut right to a battle scene, right? And they get you right into it, very visually. I love. So you'll notice right away. Normally, these blue tones that you're gonna see in every daylight scene, like Man of Steel is kind of like that, but to an extreme. The movie, right? Normally, it irritates the hell out of me. Okay. However, when you don't overdo it, so you can still see the other colors. You can see the red on his hand from the blood on the jacket. You can make out the browns. It's not all blended with this big blue palette. It's not that I hate when they do that. I hate when Windows has that as their default color scheme for like 10 or 15 years, from like 3.11 through like Windows 7 or something like that. So you can make out the other colors. They have that blue sort of palette, and it kind of, I don't know, it makes it feel a little lighter, so I'm okay with the color palette in this case, right? And that's these flying fortresses, the B-52s, B-17, sorry, the B-17s, they had whole crews on them. They had a navigator, they had the pilot, the co-pilot, they had gunners. They had a guy, I think, who did weapons and stuff like that, who ran supplies and all that. And you had to, because like a modern bomber, you'll still have a crew, but there's so much computerization. They're like point and click, point and click, point and click. It's like almost like a video game if you compare modern bombers. But you need and these older style bombers. I mean, they seem impressive, but they're very physically vulnerable, right? Like, even modern alloys, compared to World War II weapons, it would be much more durable. They'd still go down to bullet fire or whatever, but they'd be less vulnerable to issues. And these flight groups, the 100th Bomber Group was what this show follows. Heavy losses. because they basically had to fly in. I know I'm tiny, so you can't see them, but we'll hopefully get a few. So they had to send swarms of these bombers in, knowing that the German anti-air defenses were going to be dense, that the Germans had the Luftwaffe, which is the German Air Force, which, and you'll see there's a great scene coming up, which I hope I'll be able to play just a little bit of, where they make it through the anti-air defenses on the mission that happened in the first episode. And by the way, if you're with me this far, I'm not doing a review so you can decide if you want to watch this. I'm doing a review to tell you how I thought about it. Okay, so full spoilers. All right. Anyway, it's one of the best. I mean, when I think of the combat scenes, I think of John Basiloni in Iwo Jima, where when they depict how he got his Medal of Honor when he was a one-man machine, supporting all his guys. I think back to the D-Day invasion in both Saving Private Ryan, which obviously led to the same sort of duplicative thing in Band of Brothers. I think of that battle scene. I also think of the scene in Band of Brothers, which might be the best one, where they're advancing across the field and kind of like there's layered lines of both Germans and Americans trying to sort out, advance around each other. So I think it's in like the third episode. So, but there's a great battle sequence in here, and so that penetrated all this flak, and they had massive casualties and fatalities, or mortalities, to use a more technical term. So now they've landed. Now this guy here, he's a veteran of combat missions, and you see the damage on these planes. They can repair that. These planes got put back together over and over again. Between the mechanics being repaired, the welding being done, and they went in and flying fortress. They call them flying fortresses, but they're more like, they're like flying dynamos. As long as you keep repairing them, they'll just keep working. Those old machines, which were purely mechanical and built sturdily, almost better in some sense than modern stuff that falls apart when you tweak it. So now we get the theme song, which is really pretty cool, and showing you some stuff going on. So this is look at the wonderful visuals here. This is by the way, if I remember I'm trying to get the guy's name properly. So the guy who directed this, Fukunaga, okay, I've seen his name before. Beast of No Nation. That's what Idris Elba. That's how Elba, which he won awards for. That's how I kind of remember him. And he also did one of the Bond films, the 25th one, No Time to Die. So people will complain about that last chunk of Bond films, but I'm just giving you his credits. He worked on True Detective, so this guy has a good first season anyway. This guy has a good resume, as far as his I guess you would say quality of work. From the visual perspective more than anything, right? Anyway, that's why I just want to get the point out. So we see, the bombers going in. This is them. So what happened? So they still had to cross the Atlantic they had to fly across the Atlantic, right? And they still had to be careful about it because there were, ships that could potentially shoot them down, potential Air Force encounters with the German Luftwaffe and so forth. So you didn't want to just fly willy-nilly, And your navigator was key to doing that. Like nowadays, this is before we have GPS. Even the reason they invented GPS was to make what these navigators do way easier. And then eventually it led to much better targeting of missiles and stuff like that. and they struggle. The landing gear on one of the planes, one of the planes doesn't work so well, but they do a safe crash landing, and the plane's just fine. Now that they're unified, now this is another group that's trying to land in England, and they make a mistake with navigation for reasons. They wind up almost flying into a battle in France. Let's see if I can catch the landing. Again, I look at the visuals. Thorpe Abbott Air Base is what the show's kind of centered around. Visuals are amazing. He's the cat guy from the first scene. He's now the commander of the whole unit. Now this is that emergency landing. They successfully, anything you walk away from is a good landing, blah, blah, blah. And they fix the vehicle. I mean, it takes some scuff damage, but they repair it, man. The acting so far through the first episode is really good. I only recognize one or two of the actors. So I recognize the guy Austin Butler. He's Major Clevin, Gail Clevin, who has a nickname. I haven't quite caught the nickname yet. He played Elvis in the Elvis movie. He was on some CW shows a long time ago, and of course on the Shannara Chronicles on MTV, he played Will Olmsford. Now that's based on one of my favorite fantasy books of all time, The Elf Sons of Shannara, right, which is one of the top 5 to me. It was a horrible adaptation, but it's kind of worth watching because a little eye candy in there, a couple of nifty little bits, but it's way better than Wheel of Prime or Rings of Prime, But that's what he's most famous from. So I recognized him. Who else did I recognize? No, I didn't recognize that guy. I didn't recognize that guy. I think I recognize this guy. Let me check his. Okay, this guy. Okay, so this guy Barry Keoghan from The Green Knight. I didn't watch that because I didn't like part of it, but like people say it was good, but I didn't like it, so I only watched a few minutes of it. He was in Eternals, which I don't care about. That's garbage, But his face I kind of recognized, and nope, not this guy. Oh. So I reckon those two guys in particular, especially Butler, right? So this is a bunch of young actors up and coming, and we'll have to see how they turn out, But so far the performances through one episode are good. And the real telling tale for this is going to be so this is a briefing. I like the atmosphere of the briefing, and here's the case. Remember I mentioned the thing about the blue palette, right? You can still see the blues, but you can see that the lights themselves aren't blued out, right? If you want to know what that means, go watch Man of Steel when they blew out everything. With overuse of that palette. The commander, and again, this guy is, I believe he's a colonel, Colonel Huglin, right? And he's a very stern guy in public, but he's kind of nervous behind the scenes. He gives a good brief. The briefing scene is pretty good. Very how it might be portrayed and how it might actually be in a military setting, with a little bit of joking among the men and to keep it calm, and the officers bring attention, making it a little more serious, So they have to target Bremen. Which, funny enough, I wonder. Well, no, I mean, there's no way they would even know that. That's such an inside Easter egg. It would be prep for the mission, and this is where we get on the mission. And so first, I'm trying to get to where I can show you a little bit of this. One of those great scenes. Oh, what a wonderful! I mean, just I don't know. Did they do this as special? I mean, it had to have some special effects, correct? But they do have some of these planes. So could they have flown some of these surviving planes, and then filmed them, and then use that as the basis to make the CGI? That's the interesting question. You know, I'll look through the Wikipedia and see how and see if they mention anything about that. So this is them. The ground anti-air defenses are trying to take them out. You know, did you get some hits on this? But this is something that they navigate easier than what's coming, and you know they're trying to fight their way through it. So not fight, they'll survive their way through it. There's nothing they can do, and now they get to the clearing. And you think as the audience before they when the audience, if you don't know the military situation, as an audience member who hasn't, like, I'm more military aware because of my family and research, not because I personally served, but many of my family did, and I've done a lot of reading over the years on this stuff. Not as much recently, but you would think, oh, they're out of it, they're safe from all the anti-aircraft stuff, and this is a great transition here. Like, the actors do a perfect job at this point, because they know it's coming. The reason that those anti-air defenses stopped, the flak stopped, isn't because there isn't any more of it. There's more data. It's because the fighters are coming in, and now they have to actively defend themselves against the fighters. And you're following this one crew, right? So we'll have to see how much of this crew survives. You know, because the fighters come in, and you know, back then we didn't have shortly thereafter, meaning I don't know if it was in World War II, but by the time we got to let's say the Korean War, we would have had fighter screenings with these guys we were still ramping up our fighter production and capabilities. You know, at the time this all was beginning. He burnt his hands trying to unclear jam. You know, they've lost quite a few guys. This is after the mission. This is as the mission's ending. They're coming back in pieces, so to speak, and they're trying to get the survivors medical attention. And they basically, you know, they'll mention 19 took off, 1 returned, 3 missing. They're all from Vila Squad, and so again, these units had heavy, the 100th Bomber Group, heavy casualties and heavy combat losses and so forth. So they basically kept throwing bodies and planes at the enemy because the Germans had the entrenched positions and they had the superior firepower. And that's how first episode ends. So, okay, so a little bit of break. So what I liked about the episode, I like how it got you into it. Now, what's going to make or break this, okay, this series, isn't this first episode, okay? Because this is part 1. When you think of Band of Brothers and you think of the Pacific, they're like one really long movie, like a mini series, right? So the make or break on this is not whether the first episode was good or not. In fact, I'd rate the first episode like a 8 out of 10 type of thing. I'm a little crazy over it. It really, you know, the battle scene. I like that second battle scene, especially with the transition from the flak and the anti-air defenses to the planes. The actors sold that pretty well. The directors sold it well with the right cuts. You know, I would have liked to see a little more. I was seeing the other planes getting taken out, but we don't know who those people are. So I would have liked to see a little more of the supporting actors on those planes talking with the main guys, and then see them get on that plane and someone go, "Oh my God, that's Mikey's plane," or whatever. You know, like indicating that we lost someone as an audience we know about. Because in Band of Brothers and Pacific, we tended to know who was being killed, so we felt the losses along. You know, in terms of obviously not the way the real soldiers would have felt it. You know, decades and decades ago, but we got pulled into it, right? So Right now, I'm not quite pulled in, but we'll have to see. They might just be preparing to do that for the next couple episodes. Okay, so this has been already running 25 minutes. I'm not going to belabor this. I rate this like an 8 to 8.3 out of 10. Couple of flaws. Maybe a touch too long, maybe not. But it's a good first episode, and that's what you want. I've been anticipating this series for several years. Probably with my friend Jacob Ironsides and I and a couple others will be talking about this. Maybe at the end of the whole thing, we'll be talking about this in 2 months on this channel. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day. Like if you like down below. Share it out, please. I'm almost at 100 subs now. If you have any questions, say so. Thank you. Bye-bye.